Whenever I think of a YouTube character, I think of people like the angry video game nerd or the nostalgia critic. These are personas who are intentionally over the top, satirical, and humorous. Yet there's enough to know about James Rolfe and Doug Walker to distinguish when they are in character and when they are out of character. It's easy to tell when they are being honest, truly angry, or giving their honest opinions on something. These are the kind of people that you can sit down with and expect them to be civil and discuss things with you in a way that isn't just cussing at video games or squealing like a goat. And then along comes someone like JayTechTV, someone I was quite unprepared for. Someone I thought for the longest time was truly playing a character. In the past, I've sat down with other YouTubers, like Mr. NoobTube Gamer and JohnKill3D, and got to see who they truly were. Well, one of them anyways. So as you could imagine, when the time came for me to sit down and discuss video games with JayTechTV, I figured he'd set aside his persona. He wasn't going to be in character. He was going to talk to me like a normal human being. We were going to be civil about things. We weren't going to get off topic. And hell, maybe if things went well, we'd reach a mutual agreement. Ha, well, forget that. It all went apeshit. And to this day, I'm still ashamed, embarrassed, and humiliated at how terrible that debate went. And for that very reason, I decided to keep it on my channel. Not because I knew people would accuse me of deleting it. Actually, that's kind of one of them. Nor because maybe I said things in that debate that people could use against me in the future. No, I decided to keep that debate up because I wanted it to serve a reminder to not just me, but my audience, of not only how retarded JayTechTV is, but how unprepared, how unexperienced, and how lacking I was. Did one come out looking better than the other? Sure. Did one of us supposedly win? Yeah. Was there anything gained? Well, I mean, aside from the views and subscriber count, no. Nothing of substance from this debate was ever gained. I looked bad, and JayTech looked horrendous. And when I look back now, there are personal critiques I want to give on my part on what I could have done better and what I did wrong, and how to better prepare myself for future debates, and to pick people who are worthy of debating and are willing to have an intellectual conversation. And that's exactly what my first big mistake was, picking JayTech as an opponent. I knew JayTech had a history of harassing other YouTubers by false copyright striking their channel. I know he's pressured people into joining the Legion. I know he's accused companies of being racist. And more importantly, I knew this man could not hold a conversation. And that became quite apparent when I would hop onto his live streams just to hear him blabber his mouth and say the most absurd things. And I should have seen it from a mile away. This man would not be the type to sit down with you and stay on topic. I was but a young tadpole, no debate experience. Don't get me wrong, I've watched plenty of debates, but watching and doing are two completely different things. One of the biggest criticisms I get on this debate was how often I allowed JayTech to run his mouth and continuously interrupt me. Why did you do that, Fritanga? Why didn't you assert yourself? Why didn't you put your foot down? Why didn't you make it obvious that this is your platform and that you were going to speak when you needed to speak? And that simply comes down to the fact that I'm a nice guy. No, honestly, I know I call people retarded, dumbasses, little bitches, but that's all internet talk. When it comes down to actually talking to people, I like to give them the respect they deserve, if any at all. I like to view them as another person whom I want to engage in a conversation with. I want to allow them to speak their mind, say what needs to be said, make points, give me their perspective. I like to be open-minded, but as I quickly learned, kindness is not a way to win any sort of debate. Kindness can make you look like a pushover. For instance, it can make you look like a sucker when you are kind to the person who copyright striked your channel, and yet you apologize for some of it. When it comes to a debate, the most important thing is getting your point across and getting your time to talk. But there was a part of me that felt as if JayTechTV was some kind of special guest. And now that I look at it, he indeed was special. Constantly allowing him to interrupt me made me look weak. It made me look like I had nothing to say. It made all the points that I had written down on a piece of paper, all the subjects that I wanted to talk about, meaningless. Because by allowing his mouth to waterfall, I was giving him control of the debate. And when you do that, the topics will constantly switch. You'll be dragged into pointless, minor discussions that are completely unrelated to the overall debate. And that's exactly what happened. I was taken into pointless conversations, questioning whether I was a gamer or not, wanting to know how many PC exclusives I bought within that year, things that had nothing of relevance. But like I said, the fault was all on me for allowing JayTechTV to take control of the debate. And it's not like I didn't walk into this debate prepared. Like I said, I had topics and subjects I wanted to go over with Jay written on a piece of paper, to which none were ever addressed. I had reached my breaking point far too early into this debate, and because of that I accomplished nothing. And I've always considered myself a very patient person. I figured that if I just allowed Jay to keep talking, he would eventually exhaust all his points, and then I'd be able to interject. But nope, the levels of retardation were astronomical. Just when I thought Jay could run out of topics, he'd bring another one up. And like a horny carp, I took the bait, constantly dragging myself into meaningless topics that I had no answers for, because they were not the type of topics or subjects that I would ever imagine myself having to go through when I imagined how this debate would play out in my mind. I never thought I'd have my Steam library questioned. I never considered that JayTech would have one of the most retarded definitions of a gamer. And it's quite easy to tell when listening to the debate that I was caught off guard. And as it furthered along, you could slowly see me lose my sanity. I was constantly having question after question thrown at me. And when you're put in a situation where you're not given time to answer each and every question, you begin to get furious. Especially when it is a debate you are hosting, where you are the one who should be asking the questions, and not the other way around. And a huge factor to that was simply my lack of experience. It didn't matter how many debates I had watched before going into this one. Every debate I had watched in the past was organized, cohesive, and civilized, of which none of that would have ever been possible with an individual like JayTechTV. In the back of my mind, I was worried that he would leave, and when I look back now, that was a completely immature thing to even care about. I was a much smaller channel, and getting someone like JayTechTV to debate me seemed like a blessing, but only ended in a nightmare. And it didn't take long into this debate before I began to insult Jay, which is another thing I'm highly disappointed in. I simply couldn't help myself. I knew that this debate wasn't going to go anywhere, and I let my frustrations get the best of me. I began to throw out ad hominems, to straight up calling him an idiot to his face. Now, I'll be honest, it was quite satisfying at the time, but takes away any credit from me as a debater. Which is why I haven't debated in quite some time. I wanted to learn from this. I wanted to go back and re-listen to it, which I have many times. How do I do that, you may ask? Simple. I just take a trip to the hospital after I'm done. But re-listening to it after all these months, I've finally come to the conclusion that this just isn't a fucking debate. It's an unorganized argument between two dumbasses. One just happens to be more intelligent than the other, with no structure and no meat to it. It is on display for all to see on how to not debate. It should also serve as a prime example on how picking a poor opponent can lead to such a mess. If the person you're debating is unwilling to cooperate, unwilling to allow you to speak while waiting for their turn, unwilling to stay on topic, and unwilling to make any rational sense, then through the lack of patience, they can drag you down to their level of stupidity and make you look just as foolish, if not worse. I admit I did horrible on my part. The only thing I ever gained out of this was showing to the world just how truly stupid JayTechTV was. And even then, I can't take credit for that, for he managed to do that himself. But in terms of who came out the better man, who had better points, and just did better overall, well, I would have to say that was me. There was a clear winner here, but at the same time, I feel as if I gave Jay some sort of victory. And that was the victory of making me look like a complete jackass. There was so much I could have done better, but once again, I allowed him to get the best of my emotions, break my patience, and have me lose track of everything. And while I've grown since then, to an extent, and have a better understanding of how to properly engage in a debate, I think it's fair to say I'm ready for when that time comes. And I will not let you guys down. I'll be sure to pick someone with credibility to them and intelligence. Till then, keep the JTech memes going and keep the thickness on.